Welcome to our webcast of the Odette API Experts Group. My name is Peter Höfner, working for DRÄXLMAIER, and I have the honor to act as chairman for Odette API Experts Group. We are looking forward to the event, and thank you to Thomas Isolde and SEEBURGER for presenting it as a platform, and obviously thank you to Odette for organizing the event overall. Our agenda is a short welcome. We are within our 5 minutes. Then Thomas will give a glance where API technology fits in the overall digital scenario. After that, Jörg will give us an update regarding API, next step in standardizing digital communication in the automotive supply chain. After that, Andrea Sümer from Volkswagen Group Logistics will give us an insight regarding digital transformation of partner communication by hybrid solutions of classic EDI supported by API. I'll give an idea how to utilize API in automotive history, and the last 15 minutes are reserved for sum up discussion, time for your questions with all the speakers. Okay. So I hand over to Thomas for the first agenda point.
Thank you, Peter. Now you should see me, perhaps. I'm Thomas Bäzner from SEEBURGER, working since 30 years for SEEBURGER and also almost that time in automotive industry. And I'm the one of SEEBURGER who's also participating in VDA and also in Odette working groups for getting the information and of course looking how we can bring you as a company to the digitalization to support you also with APIs as we do it since a longer time also with EDI. So we had this, and then we start with the slide. Yeah, we see that digitalization is the base of the future success for you and your companies. Digitalization is almost anywhere today, and you will find it in any situation of your life. Today, it's becoming increasingly important for systems to work digitally, to be interconnected, and also to have the ability to exchange data. Also between organizations for different processes, it is important. And therefore, in the automotive industry, we see a very widespread usage of data exchange. We call it EDI, and it has different formats, as we will see it later. I assume that the production capacities we have actual won't be possible if we still would use paperwork for bringing all the information of the delivery schedules, ASN, and all the other processes to the partners. And of course, it's important to look what possibilities on a technology stack I have actual and in future. We see that automotive industry is doing and researching what's the latest technology which makes sense to use it on the EDI processes, on the API processes, on the processes that helps you and the industry to fulfill their goals. Coming to the APIs, I think you see them everywhere in your daily life. The best platform you see APIs, but you don't see them, you just use them, is your smartphone. Imagine how the apps are working. They are working with EDIs. In the automotive industry, we have, of course, a lot of usage of APIs in the modern applications like the connected car. It won't be any connection without APIs or services for the mobility data and also the rental of data of the cars and all this stuff. But they are not only in this technical components included, they are also in the administrative processes. On our end, we see more and more systems where the HR systems, the web shops, the supplier relation management systems, and all these things have to be connected because they choose for some web platform which is targeted, which is reached from their systems to API. And here, I think it's a very, very important point about to think about the security, what Peter later will mention. And of course, the internal connectivity will come more and more also on APIs. We see this upcoming also for shop floor integration with new machines, Industry 4.0, and all the names you know have in the background this technology. And of course, there are concrete points where you use it daily when you are going to some marketplaces to look what's the goods I want to buy, are they on stock? I did it in the last weekend at the Adidas shop. And of course, there also have to be some configurations. One is, of course, you look for the rims and the tires that fit to your car and get a picture how it will look like. Of course, there are a lot of advantages when using API, but because why should we use it when there would be no advantages? I do not want to go here into deep because later when we see the use cases from the other reference, you will see the advantages directly at the use cases. What we would like to say at this point is that APIs can be used to handle and to achieve a long-term goal. What is the real-time connectivity about all processes? And this is independent from where you see it. If it's in logistics, that you get the information, where are my goods? If it's in production as a digital twin or in some other area. The world will become faster, the world will become more digital. And we think this is something what will be based on API or perhaps also some further technology. Of course, API is in automotive industry not new. Some companies are already trying the first processes with API, like a Daimler Truck North America, who replaces their EDI ASN process via an API for the aftermarket processes. And of course, there are different drivers how this should be used. The advantages here at DTNA is that the WAN costs increased very high and they didn't want to pay it anymore, and so they have also, between the decreasing costs, the higher speed of getting the information of their suppliers if the goods and when the goods will come. Also, some other companies like Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, Shanghai General Motors, Tesla, and so on are looking to do EDI or something with different requirements for SCM processes with APIs. And of course, one of the points also to do paperless transport finally, and to come there perhaps to the use of some smartphones or something to have all these barcode labels on, which helps you to identify the goods and to open the doors and the gates for the trucks. What's all there is common is that these are just some processes which have been designed and defined in their guidelines, especially from the certain companies, but there is another standard. And therefore we see that what we talk about today, the standardization of APIs for automotive industry, what Odette is describing in their guideline 0802 and VDA in their recommendation VDA 4998 will help anybody not to reinvent the wheel anytime. All right, and of course there will come the questions up. Will API replace automotive EDI in automotive industry? We say no, it won't replace it, but it will extend it, expand it, help it to bring it to a higher level, to other processes, to higher acceptance, to use also some newer possibilities, more data than it had been possible in the last time. And so we would say it works perfectly well in our ecosystem, in the automotive supply chain and also other processes.
API as the next step in standardizing digital communication in the automotive supply chain. I have two agenda items. Number one is to introduce Odette International to those of you who are not familiar with our organization, and number two, to present the current activities in the context of API development. For Odette International, we are an industry-driven, non-for-profit organization in Europe, consisting of supply chain professionals and experts from the IT industry, digitalization experts, and our goal is to develop common solutions, recommendations for problems, communication problems, process problems in the automotive supply chain. We have best practice recommendations, very well known, probably the EDIFACT recommendations developed by Odette and published by Odette, MMOGLE and others. And of course, we also provide standard tools for the industry to improve their performance and to streamline the processes. Our scope is, we started out with digital messaging at the very beginning of Odette. Then we extended our scope to transport management, cybersecurity, auto ID like 2D barcode, 1D barcode, RFID tagging of products and then containers. We deal with packaging management in a close cooperation with the ECG. We also developed a recommendation for vehicle distribution, for digitalization, it's a complicated word, of vehicle distribution. And we also provide recommendations and tools for supply chain performance, capability, like MMOGLE, the well-known material management operational guideline, logistics evaluation recommendation. And in our community, we gather suppliers, OEMs, but also logistics service providers and training and technology providers to have a broad view on the different processes and to ensure support from all edges from the process. Our members are national organizations like Galia in France, VDA in Germany, Odette Sweden, in Turkey, OSD and SMMT in the United Kingdom. Then we have technology partners as members like X-Way, Hüngsberg, QID and SEEBURGER, and thank you to SEEBURGER for hosting this meeting today. And we have further regional partners in North America, China, South America and North Africa, so that our reach is beyond the core European countries represented by our members. On a global level, we cooperate very closely with AIAG, JAMA and JAPIA, All the global EDIFACT recommendations have been developed together with these organizations and are used in Japan, in the Asian environment, and in the North American environment, as well as here in Europe. On the international standardization level, we are involved in CFACT activities, in ISO activities. We are member of the European Digital Transport and Logistics Forum, and we have been very active working in CEN working groups, and I mentioned already we have a close cooperation with the logistics, Finnish vehicle logistics organization ECG. That's our scope. That is the background of Odette International. Now I want to talk about the API activities within our environment. Although we started in parallel several activities, I want to talk first of all about international standardization. As I mentioned, we are a very active part of UNCFACT, and for more than 30 years now. But since also on UNCFACT level, API usage and deployment is a big topic, we decided to get actively involved and even act as a project leader into core projects at CFACT level to make sure we have reliable international standards. We learned this lesson once, you know, in 84, Odette was founded, and at first we developed, based on ISO 9735, our own syntax, our own EDI syntax, and developed messages in the syntax. But when UNCFACT published the first EDIFACT directories and EDIFACT was more and more used globally, we had to migrate from our own syntax to the CFACT syntax to EDIFACT. And of course, we want to avoid a similar experience. We want to start our activities and rely our recommendations on international standards. We developed at CFACT two basic recommendations. Number one, the JSON schema naming and design rules. They are intended to reuse the existing reusable data model that has been developed over the last 20 years at UNCFACT, and we want to reuse these models because it does not make any sense to start to model a party or a part or a shipment, the data items of these information items again. We want to use existing models and simply use these artifacts in our environment, in our recommendations. And the second is the Open API naming and design rules. Open API is the most widely used standard to technically specify API, REST API interfaces, and we focus on REST API. We don't deal with SOAP interfaces or similar things. We focus our activities on REST APIs, and therefore we use Open API 3.1. And at CFACT, we have developed the consistent way to facilitate this Open API 3.1 to define and document API interfaces. And with these two documents, we have a reliable basis for globally applicable API specifications like transport and trade, but as well for industry-specific standardization. We have some processes that are hardly used in other industries, like just-in-sequence processes or similar, and there we will develop also our industry-specific recommendations. In parallel with this international standardization activities, we, together with the VDA, we run a a kind of pilot project based on real requirements from our members to enhance transport track and trace visibility in transport processes, transparency in transport processes. Andrea will talk about that much more. For us, it was a starting point to learn about the technology, and the idea is, of course, to use or to achieve transparency beyond the EDIFACT level, and also to support mobile devices, internet communication, and similar things. It was also kind of prototype project to get familiar with the concept of microservices. In our EDI messages, we have, you know, a huge catalog of business processes and data requirements, and many OEMs have they have more or less the same process, but slightly different data requirements. In our EDI messages, you find support for all the variants of these processes. And therefore EDI messages tend to be big monolithic chunks of information, whereas API, the core meaning of API usage is to have smaller services, and in the sum of many small services you get the full picture, like building blocks, you know, little Lego bricks that you can assemble to get in the end the complete picture. The result is also available on GitHub. Who is interested can use this link. We distribute the presentation, and you can use this link to look at the sources. So as a result of that project, we developed a kind of toolbox. As I mentioned, we have the CFAC data model and its artifacts as a starting point for the data requirements. We have the API design rules, and based on these API design rules, we specify then in a YML file the actual interface with all the various features. And at that level, we have published this as technical rules for use of API in the automotive supply processes. When I said we talk about microservices, our approach is to discuss with the business experts the user stories, and based on these user stories, we develop use cases. Like an example here, a user story could be, as a goods receiver, I want to know which shipment is loaded onto which truck, and I want to know the license plate of the truck so that I can use global track and trace solutions to track the transport, and through the shipment ID I know which parts are on the truck, and whether or if there is a delay in the transport process, I can assess whether my production line is concerned or influenced, my production is influenced by this delay or not. Things like that. And on those user stories, we develop use case definitions and derive the data requirements. And as you can see, it's much less data requirements in such API interfaces than you would have in a complete EDIFACT message. We also try to align our publishing process to modern software technologies, and we apply this model of 5 stages of recommendations. There is a raw status, meaning everything is experimental, it's still under development. Then we have draft recommendations where we believe we have done our work, but it has to be checked and tested whether it's complete and can be used for production purposes. Once that verification has been done. We have a stable recommendation. Of course, these recommendations or these interface descriptions will evolve, will develop further, will be maintained. So at a certain point, we will have a newer version and we declare something as deprecated, an older version as deprecated, and at the end of the life, it's retired. Then we say, you know, you shouldn't use this anymore. It's too old and it does not support the processes good enough anymore. So kind of continuous improvement, you know, first develop, then check, then adjust, and act on the recommendations. Based on our experience, we thought it is necessary to have a permanent group, not just a project group that comes together, develops an interface, and then disappears again. We need a continuous effort here, and Peter is the chair of our API experts group. The intention is to identify areas and applications where API can bring a new quality into existing processes, not to replace EDI, as Thomas already explained, but to extend it and to gather additional effects. And as I mentioned, continuous development and improvement is necessary. So far, we identified the transport transparency in the inbound supply chain. Andrea will certainly talk about that much more. Then we also have we also deal with automatic synchronization of packaging agreements and instructions between supplier and customer. That seems to be an endless, you know, a source of pain and confusion in the supply chain, and causes much manual work, and we try to reduce this manual work. Then also commissioning and preparing of shipments, of instructed deliveries, maybe even, you know, forth and back. The supplier communicates the progress in preparing the shipment, and the customer can then, as a feedback, send the proper labels for the packages. That's under evaluation. And in the financial area, a big topic is the automatic synchronization of price data, especially for items that are where you have big fluctuation in prices, like based on exchange rates or based on the current global market for raw materials. And in parallel to these business-oriented things, we also deal with the security requirements. A subgroup deals with the security that is necessary for this kind of application, rights and role management. We have experiences in the data exchange when it comes to files, to EDI files or to CAD files, but certainly we need to address this item also for APIs. We are open for additional ideas. So if you have any ideas where to or in which topics we should dig in the future, you can use this link for a little questionnaire and can provide your feedback, your ideas, and of course we are also open for additional participants in our experiences, in our projects here. One item I would like to mention as well is in November we have our next Odette conference in Berlin. And of course, API development and experiences will be a big topic at this conference as well. I would, you know, ask or recommend to mark the date, to save the date, and we would be happy to welcome you at our Odette conference in Berlin to continue discussion on a broad level in a face-to-face situation, and to share experiences with all of our community members. That was my my presentation regarding Odette and our activities in the API environment. I believe for questions is space at the end of the meeting after all the others have given their presentation. So I would return the screen to the next presenter.
So hello everybody, I am Andrea Sümer. I am from Volkswagen Group Logistics and I am working with the Center for Digital Collaboration with our external partners with regards to EDI communication. And today I want to talk about the digital transportation of partner communication by using hybrid solutions of classic EDI and API technology. So just a sec, I think now it's working. So where do we come from? During the last, like you can see here in this part, during the last 15 years, we had a lot of challenges in order to supply our production lines with the right part at the right time, and the challenges were getting harder during the last few years, like you know, with Corona and with the war and so on and so forth. And so therefore, at the moment, we are expecting to be crisis the new normal for the challenges we have in order to deliver our production line. So at the moment, we are dealing with the trouble with the shortage of semiconductors. We had COVID, which is still not finished. Yes, we had the raw material prices and transport capacities at the moment is an issue as well. And so the thing is that the surrounding will not get better anytime soon, and we will have more challenges. And this means for us that we need to collaborate in future in a much more flexible and dynamic way, like we did in the past. So we have to figure out and to find out a way to interchange the information for each partner we are working with in a lean and flexible way in order to get all the information we need to deal with this crisis. So in our vision, digitization and interconnection of entire supply chain in order to be able to act flexible is the main goal we have to achieve in future, and we are already on the way. And I think the basis, therefore, is a broad information basis. So first of all, we need the same information from each partner to the related process. So at the moment, we are working together, or we already have connections with the, we are part of the Catena X, and but at the moment we are really focusing on our internal environment and how to make it run. With the new cloud solution, we have our internal part, the industrial cloud, and the part which is related to logistics, it's called WIX in our words, and there we are trying to connect the old legacy environment with in order to deliver new flexible microservices for the day-to-day business based on what we have. So in general, we already have implemented the delivery call-offs to call off our parts from the supplier. And we already use the new global messages like the transport notification, the transport status, and like volume forecast, and so on and so forth. And in this environment, we use all of this information in order to steer our stock levels, demands, and capacities. And we steer the production planning and operation there. So just a sec. Of course, I'm a little. So, we are doing this, or we are trying to connect the information for 400, more or less 400 forwarders we are working with at the moment. We have legacy systems in 125 plants, And we have more than 200 applications which are processing or providing information in and out of our internal environment. So this is the more or less the environment we are dealing with. And we started interact with our partners, with the suppliers and the forwarders using classic EDI. And in addition, we have a new solution which is called Rio with our partner Rio, which is more or less a web EDI for the partners who are not able to provide the EDIFACT messages by themselves. So they can use our portal solution in order to do the same work, or to enter the information which is needed to get at the end an EDI message with the same content like someone who had produced it by itself. This is more or less the environment we are dealing with. And getting forward, the global EDIFACT messages were implemented during the last, I would say, 7 years in our company. So we migrated from the old EDI formats where Jörg was already talking about, to the global messages. So at the moment, from VDI speaking, we are using the VDA 4984, which is based on the message type Delfor and is used for the call off at the supplier. And in addition, we are using the VDA 4933 T2 as the notification to the forwarder, which is called the transport order, but the information is based on the classic global dispatch advice for automotive. So it's, so to say, a planned shipment, which we intend, or which the supplier intends to load on the truck. And this is the information, or this is the message, how we get the information to the forwarder. In addition, we are using the, this is an error, we are using the T3, which is the transport order confirmation, in order to get the information from the forwarder when he comes to pick up the shipment. And then we have the 4987 as the actual global DAS-ADV, the dispatch advice, to send to us as the recipient of the material, what was loaded on the truck and what is on its way, in order to use it for further processes. And in addition, we have already implemented the VDA 4945, which is the transport status message, when in general the forwarder can tell us when the truck was loaded or unloaded, or when it was delivered to our plants, or in between, where you can tell us where the means of transport is on its way. So we have already implemented these messages, which are the foundation of our communication today. And this is in general up and running. And we figured out that this kind of information interchange does only work with long-term partners. But in the world we are in today, we will get more and more. We need to use in the forwarding area more or less ad hoc transport partners and so on and so forth. And so we figured out that the classic EDI communication will not be sufficient to act on the current challenges and to get the full picture of what is going on in the transport chain. So in general, we identified that with this kind of communication, we have already not only the message definition based on the global standards and on because we are working on the standards of Odette and VDA. But what is a big benefit of the work which was done there in the standardization is the definition of the processes and the details what the process needs. So therefore, we the messages which I just showed you in the other file in the previous slide, those messages interact with each other in a certain kind. And so when we were talking about that one EDI message has the information for the entire process. For example, the dispatch advice starts with the information about the shipment and has the information about which kind of packaging of transport loading units in the shipment, and in addition has all of the details of the material of the content of the loading unit. But this is an information down here which is already only interesting to the recipient of the goods. For the transport process, the forwarder is only interested in the first two levels, because its system, in general, he will not unpack the transport loading unit, and he is not able to process all of those details in this part of the messages in his system. So therefore, we need new solutions in order to give him only the information he needs, and not to flood him with additional information he throws to the dustbin. So we identified that this levels of those three message types, which are used in the communication chain, for both partners is relevant, the first and the second level. So when it comes to shipment, the one who is responsible of material replenishment at the plant wants to know where the material is. He is not, in general, not interested where the means of transport is. He wants to know, will I get my material in time? And so we are at the moment expecting that the supplier sends us the transport order with what he intends to ship, but there are in between. Usually, he does it a day or days before the actual shipment will be dispatched. So at this point of time, he can only tell us what he intends to ship. And in a lot of cases, this is not what he actually will ship on the day when the truck is standing in front of the plant. So there are differences between the transport order and the dispatch advice. And in the happy flow, when everyone notifies to the forwarder what he intends to ship, and he dispatches what was intended to ship, and there's no difference in between. You don't need to track and trace, but the reality is different, because we have a lot of set flows where the supplier informs about what he intends to ship, and the next day one of the boxes is missing, or he loads another box on the truck, and so on and so forth. And therefore we figured out it's really, really important to get an information all the time when the means of transport is loaded or unloaded, in order to track and trace the proper information. So therefore, we identified that this information should be, or we should be able, in our first use case, to communicate by API. So therefore, we did this working group at the VDA level in order to get a standardized solution, and we created the API guideline that Jörg in the previous presentation already showed. And we intend to do a pilot project for that, which I will get deeper in one of the next slides. So in general, we said if we want to have a proper track and trace and not have the surprise at the plant level when we unpack or unload the truck, in order to identify that the material we are expecting and we have a shortage of is not on the truck, we need to be accurate in these interfaces, and we have to communicate the loading and unloading of the on the truck. So therefore, we defined the MVP for the pilot solution where Jörg already talked about. Getting further is that we said, okay, in order to get a full overview of all shipments and all material, we need to enhance our current form of communication with API. So the definition of the standards with the OEM suppliers and forwarders were already created in VDA. So that, this can be reused, and we are complementing the existing EDI infrastructure at VW by using standard API communication. So therefore, we will reduce the complexity for the data supply, and so we can connect more partners in a shorter period of time in order to get the entire information and to reuse it for our further processes. And we already have a prototype in our company, which is called Group Tower, which supplies the supply chain, provides the supply chain managers with the complete transparency for decision and support. So this is created, it takes all of the information, even if a material is only notified to the forwarder or if it's on its way to the plant. All of the information we are getting at the moment by classic EDI is used in order to create this alerting tool for each level in the company. When, if it's the one who is responsible for one part in one company and this part is critical, he can use this Group Tower application, which is running on our internal industrial cloud in Amazon Web Services. Or if it's a plant manager who needs to know for his entire production what are the critical parts, no matter which level of decision making has to be done. We have already this kind or this first evolution level of our Group Tower, where we can not only see the information for one plant or one part, we can you can use it even for all of our plants and get an overview where you have production lines that are running in shortage or that will get in trouble due to the delivery of critical parts. So this is one of the first solutions where we use the data for, and therefore we need more data of the same type to support these processes. And in order to do so, at the moment we are working with Odette and with VDA, and we are taking in the first level, or what we already implemented is we are using the classic EDI formats, which we already get from the partners, from our EDI converter, and we are converted into JSON format. So in order to provide our internal solution with JSON transport order service and to support the microservice. So for each of the messages, of the EDI messages, there is in general a clone in JSON format in order to support our internal microservices and internal API communication, in order to support at the end our internal processes. So, and at the moment we are working on a solution in order to provide our logistic partners with the right information, because usually, or the main message in order to make tracking and tracing, to make it, to give an added value to the process, all of the partners involved in the transport chain need to have the shipment information. Like I showed in the other slide, the forwarder is only interested in the shipment data and in the transport loading unit data. So it does not need a full-blown message. So in order to provide him what he really needs in a linear solution, at the moment we are working on this interaction inside our cloud. So we are taking the original message, we are transforming it into JSON according to an individual JSON schema. And then we have an enrichment and correction engine where we, on one hand side, where we are correct partner data or partner information, which is maybe erroneous in the original message. And we have a central route service where we have all of our routes from supplier to our plants, because a lot of times we have a segmented transport route, a multimodal transport route, and in this central route information service, there is the information which partner is participating in one route and which partner, so to say, needs the information. So all of this information is inside this enrichment and correction engine, and out of this we will have manipulated clones of this original information we got from the partner in order to support our internal processes. So it's planned to support such internal processes like dynamic yard management, meaning that when we know where the truck is in front of the plant, maybe we can use it for gate opening and so on and so forth. So we can do a check, and if it's authorized to get into the plant, and so therefore we can use it for dynamic yard management. And on the other hand, we can use it for material management, like I showed our group tower, that the one who is in charge of the parts does know where the part is, and we will use it to get more or less step-by-step to paperless transport, because if the data is accurate provided, we don't need paper like shipment bills and so on and so forth in the future. So this is already the precondition in order to support these processes, which are already running prototypely and which will get more important every day in order to run the business in times of crisis. And the new thing is that then if we have done all of this work and we have a proper message and the proper information which is needed by all of our partners in the logistics process or in the transport process, we will provide, in addition to the normal EDI classic collaboration and communication, we will provide for each message with this improved information microservice which includes the same information or which is based on the standard which we already use in the EDIFACT message, in order that each one knows who creates or who uses a new API interface can reuse the knowledge on how the messages are working. And for example, in this case, the logistics provider takes only the information from the shipment which is interesting to him and not all of the detailed information which is inside the package. It can use a microservice which is customized according to its needs and according to what he uses, and he does not have to select or unselect the information he gets with the EDI message. And we can provide it to all partners thanks to this central route information service. We can provide it to all partners who is participating in the route, and therefore he does not has to add the information manually into this data based on the shipping documents. He can digitize its process here, and so we get a lot of steps further to digitalization of the entire process. So the last thing I want to show you is a summary of what I already said before. For the MVP of the of Odette, which Jörg Walther was already talking about as well. The idea is that we rely on the shipment information which we get from the supplier, but we will start that with the so-called shipment, or with the connection of the shipments and the means of transport at all of the interfaces, at the pickup and at the cross-dock, at the and at the pickup at the cross-dock, and again at the delivery at the plant. We will use this, or we will start implementing API communication only to with the connection of the shipment and the means of transport. And the idea is to connect everything over an application by Odette, where every partner can connect, whether he does a direct connection or he uses a third party in as a data hub, in order to interchange the information, even though they have no direct connection. So this is more or less the scope of the MVP we intend to do with EDI. And I think this should be a good exercise in order to get more insight on what can be the next steps where we can use API communication in future.
Thank you for that. I'll switch off my camera. I'm Peter Höfner, working for DRÄXLMAIER, acting as Odette API Chairman. And my subject today is how we want to utilize API in automotive industry. My current job title is Head of IT Solution Sales, but no panics, I won't sell you anything today. I started this as IT Integration Architect, and yeah. DRÄXLMAIER is an typical automotive supplier in the premium market. Due to our products, interior, harness, high voltage and low voltage, we are very strong in the GIS business. Just a very short highlight regarding my company, and then I would like to go to the presentation. Oh, now it works, which is perfect. So I'm sharing the screen now. Cool, finally it works. So which use cases we initially handle in the API experts group? Thank you, Andrea. Your use case is not part of it. Why? Because it's already existing, but it typically fits to our standard candidates for API integration. What qualifies a candidate for API integration? First of all, interesting is always information that is currently not available in the process. Reasons might be that the process timing does not allow transfer with the EDI message, or the EDI process is not always integrated in real time. Sometimes we have the issue that the EDI message is sent 1 or 2 days after the real process. Sometimes we also have the issue that the EDI message, for example, a dispatch advice, is sent several hours before actually the trucks leaves the yard. Other candidate or other reason why the information is not available might be frequent data changes, like, for example, the current stocks in the inventory. These are typical examples where the information that would support the process effectively is simply not available. Other use cases we are interested in are use cases which are currently mainly handled in supplier portals. These supplier portals are typically provided by the OEM, but could also be by a first tier, and the second tiers are working in the first tier's portal. That's why it's named supplier portal. VDA and Odette already started an initiative to check if a standardization of those portals is is possible. I think that was around about 10 years ago, but obviously due to corporate identity topics, a standardization of those portals is not possible. But what is possible is that we standardize the interface tier using APIs, because here we do not have any corporate identity impact. Okay, the first use cases, besides the initial initiative by Andrea and the track and trace use case we have already heard about, is commissioning of small load container. This is clearly not suitable for the current EDI process, because from a timing perspective, this is well before truck closed. But if it's an article of interest, which is very critical for the production chain of the recipient, it can be a very important early information for recipient's production planning. Next example we are currently defining are the packaging instruction. Jörg already noted that. Here we are having shared responsibilities, and this is typically supported by an existing workflow in the portal. We will not change that workflow because this is the portal provider logics, but just the communication tier will have API as additional option. Next use case are price adjustments. Typically they are initiated by customer or supplier, and the delays cause high efforts for all participants, what we currently see, so we want to speed things up. Jörg has already stated this. My message is more or less the same. Current EDI messages are typical microservices. The complete set of information is transferred in one message, which is great, but that means also that the complete exception handling has to be defined within that message. So what results do we see? We do see a low adoption rate. A typical onboarding time for one supplier is at the moment 6 months, and this is massive. The level of standardization is typically rather high regarding the main service. The happy path, that is typically more or less the same throughout the customer chain, throughout the supply chain. Independent of the customer, but it's very low when it comes to exception handling, and that's why we are having typically customer-specific EDIs and not real generic EDIs. Here, APIs and the idea of microservice can act as a huge advantage. Because APIs offers the chance to split the use case in microservices. So first of all, the information can be transferred whenever available and helpful in the process. We want to achieve a time decoupling, so we are not focused on a dedicated timing in the process like the DES RDV, which should be sent typically with trucks closed, but we can adapt the information whenever it's available. This can be before the EDI message is sent. It could also be after the EDI message is sent. And this time decoupling offers a huge chance. The next advantage is that the main flow or the happy path will act as individual service, which is completely independent from the complete exception handling. So obviously exception handlings will be needed, but for this alternate flow, first of all, typically that can be handled in the portal. This is manual effort, and if a use case appears 2 times in a month, then it's not worth to automate it. And alternatively, we could use standardized APIs in case the exception handling is identical throughout the industry, or individual APIs if offered by the portal. But it's very important that we do not try to solve all issues within one message. And if it comes to exception handling, yeah, we should follow the 80-20 rule. Typically, the 80% of the use cases are can be easily handled, and the 20 can be reduced step by step if required. So what we expect from that approach. First of all, it's an increased adoption rate. The onboarding should become a matter of weeks when a partner is initially in the integrating the service, and can be reduced to days if the service is already has already been integrated for a dedicated customer and is just switched to another customer. We want to see an increased level of standardization. We want to allow customer-independent generic integration for main service, for the happy path, for the main flow, and a standardized exception handling if possible. A customer-specific exception handling whenever customer and its partners and suppliers think it helps in the process. I think we all agree that future in our industry will be data monetization, and I want to bring that together with the customer-centric innovation by Amazon. I think we can learn a lot from those guys who really changed the industry. Most of them know them as a partner, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Google, whether it's Microsoft, and they have an executive insights for their leadership principles, and they are really helpful. This is the self-sustaining flywheel of growth. They do start with customer experience. They increase traffic. This increase sellers. This increase selections. And very important, with all that in that wheel, they lower the cost structure. They can offer lower prices, and that comes back to customer experience. So what we see at the moment, that somehow the lower cost structure is not handled properly throughout the supply chain. So my first wish is that you create a business case for logistic innovation and optimization. Most likely you do that because otherwise you wouldn't get any internal development, whatever. But we have to bring logistics and purchasing or procurement or however the department is named in your organization together, that we come in a position that you reward and recompense suppliers that allow, embrace, and support innovation. Obviously, we as a supplier, when we act as supplier, we will also do that for customers, but at the moment, I haven't named that specifically. The reason is in our industry, we do not have an issue with the EBIT of the OEMs. That's growing massively at the moment, but a lot of first tiers are having a massive issue with the EBIT, and we have to work through that together and improve that. Okay, Thomas still said that I should say something about security, and well, I haven't had a slide. Why? The reason is simple. Security is given. We just have to enable it. It's a constant subject of change. That's why we have also founded an API security group. For you to know only two things. First of all, we are not reinventing the wheel. We are setting up everything based on proven W3 org standards. And we collaborate together with Catena-X because they are using the exact same technology, even if they use the Eclipse database connector, and it will, the communication will also be via HTTPS, and we can reuse the security patterns between Catena-X and our API integrations in futures to come. Okay, that's it from my side. And next topic in the agenda are questions and answers. So do we have any questions in the chat or somewhere else? Not only to my topic, also to Jörg, Andrea, and Thomas regarding there or also in the round.
Yes, there is a first question. I think Andrea is the best person to answer it because it is the question when the MVP is planned.
I think at the moment we are verifying it because this is an MVP which is planned with Odette and the members. And at the moment, because of the crisis last year, the funding is not finally clarified. So at the moment we are working on that, but if everything goes fine, it will be started in the next 2 months or so, I would say. I don't know if Jörg wants to add something.
Yes, if everything goes according to our internal schedule, we can kick off the development of that MVP at the beginning of March, and then it probably takes some weeks to implement the core services, and then we will address selected partners to use the MVP to check whether our API specification can really be used in a production-like environment. But I have no idea whether it takes 4 weeks to develop the solution, or 6 weeks, or 2 months, or something like that.
Yes, and I think the person is welcome that you come directly up to her and discuss it in deep. Perhaps there is also some interest in participation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Of course, we have to align with those partners who are the how should I say, the addressees of the information. They have to nominate some sparring partners, so to say. But certainly we will announce when we start with that, and try to involve interested parties.
All right, hope this is fine for you, the one who gave the question. And then, of course, all other participants are welcome to put their questions now in the chat, or even to open their microphones.